Hey, good morning, Pat, Carol, Estella. Good. So you learned Oxcode. Yeah, that's a good one, Estella. I'm not sure what that is. So I want to finish today. I've been chatting a little bit about anxiety. Let me adjust this a little bit. Talking a little bit about anxiety the last couple times that I've been on, and I want to just finish that up today and talk again about this. Again, this comes from talking to people and the conviction. Pretty much everywhere I go. I got my hair cut, obviously, Tuesday, and talking with the girl that cut my hair. And she is, I shouldn't say girl. I was going to say young lady, but she's not a young lady either. She's about my age. But she was talking a little about the anxiety that she has struggled with for the last year and a half. They were shut down for 3 months. Took a long time for her to get unemployment and blah blah blah. And they're not under Governor Wolf's mask mandates. I forget who hair salons are under, but they still have to wear masks. And she was telling me about half the people that come in get really upset that they have to wear a mask, and she spends most of the day arguing, blah blah blah. So she was just talking to me about the anxiety that she's struggling with, and it really seems to be epidemic. Everything we've been through. Good morning, Pat. Old lady, yeah. This pandemic and everything we've been through, just the political strife, the issues that we've been through with race, following the murder of George Floyd and the trial, and then multiple other issues, et cetera. All of that is really custom made for. Good morning, Aaron. Custom made for. I'm anxious to find out what Oxcode means too. We'll wait for Estella to define it. Custom made for anxiety. And so I've been talking a little bit about it. We've been told to be anxious, to be careful, et cetera, with good reason. And I know that anxiety is much more complicated than this. I've talked about it a little bit each time that we've been on. But one of the things that happens with people who struggle with anxiety, even people who don't necessarily struggle with anxiety, but are finding themselves anxious right now. Actually, this morning, too, I was at the gym early this morning, and the gym you don't have to wear masks anymore, which is cool. I was on a guy on an elliptical, and I think the spacing, too, they took all the signs down for the social fitnessing, I think they called it. So you can actually stand next to a person now at the gym. Morning, Am. So I was chatting with the guy next to me. He still had a mask on, and he told me, he said he's just struggling. We were joking about it, and I shouldn't say joking about it, chatting about it. And he said he's just not ready to take his mask off yet. I said, didn't you get vaccinated yet? And he has been vaccinated. But anyway, anxiety, often what happens with people is when we're anxious is we end up dwelling on something. We really can't stop thinking about it. Keeps us awake at night. And we start to replay over and over all of the possible negative outcomes. And we actually sometimes even are pretty sure that we see those negative outcomes. We see them happening. And we have all kinds of negative thoughts about things. So again, as we kind of wrap this up, there's a great section in Philippians chapter 4. And I know I talked about this maybe a week or 2 weeks ago, something like that, when we were talking about this. Thematically, these verses from Philippians chapter 4, verses 4 through 9, it'd be great for you to read them. I'm actually going to read over them kind of step by step. But thematically, they are linked to the verse chapter 4, verse 9, 4, verse 6, where Paul says, don't be anxious about anything. And that thematically is this theme where Paul is talking about anxiety. Don't be anxious about anything, he's saying. And so there's a lot of real practical things that you can do. If it's true that when we're experiencing anxiety, what's happening for a lot of us, and again, I know it's more complicated this, but what's happening for a lot of us is we're dwelling negative thoughts, dwelling on something that causes our anxiety, something that makes us worry, which again, that's what we've just been force fed for the last year and a half. So in these verses, Philippians chapter 4, verses 4-9, Paul gives a bunch of really practical advice, things that you can do. Kind of a person I know who has talked to a counselor for anxiety and depression talks about the fact that his counselor gave him tools. And when he's struggling with anxiety, he pulls out some of these tools from his toolbox. And this is a good way to think about this. So here's some of the things that Paul says thematically when he's talking about don't be anxious about anything. I'm going to give you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different tools that you can use one or use all of them. Verse 4, the first thing that Paul says is rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say it, rejoice. So one of the tools in your toolbox when you're struggling with anxiety, when your mind is dwelling on negative thoughts, and you're going to all these negative outcomes, things are going to, bad things that are going to happen. And sometimes you even see them. What I mean by see them is you get, your mind convinces you that they're actually going to happen. You see evidence of bad things happening when in fact, in many, many cases, those bad things are not going to happen, but you see them anyway. But at any rate, the toolbox number 1 is rejoice. Rejoicing it's inseparably linked with gratitude. Joy and gratitude, you can't separate them. In fact, in many ways, rejoicing and gratitude is, I agree, Aaron, you see what you look for. So in this case, what Paul is talking about is practice joy, practice gratitude. I wanted to bring in, I forgot, one of the things that I do this occasionally in my journaling in the morning right now is every morning I write a list of 10 things that I'm grateful for. And I've been doing that, I don't know, maybe 7-8 days now. I don't do it every day, but I sometimes go on these little episodes where that's what I want to do. When I find that my journal is turning negative, when I find myself lamenting my failures, when I find that I am often thinking negative thoughts, I reverse that by practicing joy, by practicing gratitude. So right now I've been doing this. Every single morning, in my journal, I just write 10 things that I'm grateful for. So that's number 1. Paul says, in toolbox number 1, verse 4, Philippians chapter 4, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say it, rejoice. And joy and gratitude, it's impossible to be grateful and not to be joyful, and vice versa. So the way that I'm practicing joy right now is every morning, just a list of 10 things. I forgot I was going to bring my journal and show you, but I left it at home. So that's number 1, practice gratitude. Every morning, every day. I would suggest morning if you have the opportunity. Just write down, if you don't have a journal, just get a sticky note, get a little thing of sticky notes. And on that sticky note, write 5 things that you're grateful for and why. That's number 1. Number 2, verse 5, Paul said this, very next sentence, let your gentleness be evident to all, the Lord is near. It's an interesting thing because often in the Bible we talk about, Jesus talked about don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And there's this sense of we don't do things to be seen biblically, which is true, but this is interesting. Paul says, let your gentleness be evident to all. So what Paul is saying is focus on others and do it in such a way that other people are going to see it. This is not just having good thoughts about other people, but it's doing good things. That word gentleness, by the way, if you do a study on that, I think months ago, I talked to you about how you can see internet, you can do word studies and find out what the Greek means. You don't even have to know anything about the Greek or the Hebrew, but it's possible to do that. But if you would do a study on that gentleness, it's a word that means there's no English equivalent. So you'll see different words in different translation, but it means to be gracious and kind and considerate to other people and to demonstrate that. So what Paul is saying is focus on others. One of the surest ways, one of the best tools that you can use to deal with anxiety is to flip the switch, turn the tables, whatever you want to say, and do things for other people. So I would suggest to you that if you want to overcome anxiety, one of the things you can do is to determine that every single day you're going to do something considerate for somebody else. It does not have to be big, expensive things. Sometimes it can even be just words. You can decide that every person you're going to have an encounter with, you're going to say something kind. Pick out one kind thing that you can say. You have a nice smile, whatever it is. Last night at our Bible study, one person was talking about they went to the hairdresser and they had decided ahead of time, I'm not just going to sit there silently. I'm actually going to have a conversation with the person that was styling or cutting or whatever her hair. So that's one thing. Focus on other people. Do one nice thing, at least one nice thing every day. Buy somebody a cup of coffee, write a thank you note, say a nice word, pick a flower, hand a flower to somebody else. Whatever you can do. That's number 2. So number 1 is practice joy, practice gratitude. Number 2, focus on others. Number 3, this is from verse 6. Don't be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Paul's next thing is to pray about everything. Pray about every single thing. This is another great tool in the toolbox for dealing with anxiety. As you go through the day, just have a constant dialogue with God about what's going on. It's amazing. This is something you can learn to do habitually. Often we talk to ourselves, and instead of talking to yourself, learn to practice talking to God. So when you're driving and you're walking, you're looking outside, like I'm looking outside at gorgeous roses right now that Rob Williams has planted here. And in your brain, it's like, man, that's a pretty color of red. Just learn to have a conversation, a dialogue with God. Say, God, wow, look at, colors are a really cool thing. You made our world with colors. There's more colors even that you and I get to see visibly. And you just have a dialogue with God all the time. Be praying to God about everything. That's tool number 3. Prayer is probably one of the biggest, most important tools you can use in dealing with anxiety. So number 1, practice gratitude. 5 or 10 things every day that you're grateful for. Number 2, focus on other people. Do a nice thing. Be considerate of other people. Number 3, pray. Number 4, think about the right things. This is verse 8 in Philippians chapter 4. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. So learn to turn your thoughts towards good things. And really, this is just a matter of anxiety is often thinking the negative things. And you can habitually learn to think about good things. So think about positive things. Think about the things that are good and noble. If you're a reader, read things that help you think about positive thoughts. Listen to good music. And then number 9. And we talked about this, I think, Tuesday, verse 9, lesson number 5. Paul said, whatever you've learned or received or heard from me or seen me, put it into practice. And it's those last words that are important. Paul says, whatever you've learned from me, whatever you've received from me, whatever you've seen in me, put it into practice. The last tool in the toolbox is to act. A lot of anxiety comes from inaction. We sit and we stew and we think. One of the books that I read on anxiety some time ago talked about the fact that work is one of the best antidotes to anxiety. I never thought about that before, but the author Norman Wright, I think. I lost you all there for a second. I have no idea if, my screen went blank, but it looks like you're back. So I have no idea. I don't know if I lost you at all, but sorry about that if I did. A guy named Norman Wright, I think that's who it was, wrote a book on anxiety. Okay, good. Thanks, Estella. And he just talked about work, and it's the idea of activity, doing things. So act. Oh, great. Thanks, Anne. So do things, put into practice be active, do things. So those are from Philippians chapter 4. That theme where Paul is talking about this. Don't be anxious about anything. Just some real practical statements that Paul has. Practice gratitude every day. Write a list of 5 to 10 things that you're grateful for and why. Simple things. Doesn't have to be grand things. Just simple things. Number 2, focus on others. Be deliberate about being considerate to other people as you go through your day. Number 6, and this is one of the key ones, pray about everything. Bring all of your thoughts to God. The thoughts that you're anxious about, talk to God about them. And practice being a person who says, God, I want to trust you on this. And number 8, think about the good things, things that are noble, the things that are excellent. So habitually train your mind. And number 5 from verse 9 is to act, put into practice the things, just to be active. And we talked about this on Tuesday. I know I gave you a list of things that you could do to just get out there and act, even if it's, just actually going physically to the grocery store, going to the gym, going to the walk, talking to people, going inside at Dunkin' Donuts. I hardly ever go through the drive-thru at Dunkin' Donuts. Just because of who I am, the practice of interacting with people is such a good thing for me, rather than talking to a screen. That's not true for everybody. That's not a rule, or that's not a law. But I just know that because of my introverted tendencies and my comfortableness being alone, I need to interact with people. So when I go to Dunkin' or any other place, I always go inside. So do things like that. Act. Just get out there and start doing things and acting. So looks like a rainy day, and yeah, so good, Stella. Thanks. So I want to pray for you all, especially for those of you who may be paying attention just because of dealing with anxiety and things. I want to pray that God will be bringing healing, and use these tools that, from Philippians chapter 4, the tools that God is giving us. God is giving us these tools so that we can learn to not be anxious about anything. Let me pray for us, and then we will commence with our days. All right. Father, I want to thank you that you know us so well as your creatures, that somehow in the process of Paul writing a letter, you found the opportunity through Paul to encourage us with what we sometimes struggle with our anxiety. God, I want to pray for those people for whom this last year and a half has been really, really difficult for a number of reasons. God, we have been kind of force-fed anxiety, and not for bad reasons, but God, we've ended up now, many people struggling with letting go of anxiety and being free from worry. So God, I pray that we would be able to understand that you have given us tools, that it's really, really difficult for us to just say, I don't want to be anxious anymore, but that in many ways we're going to have to learn to move ahead even as we deal with some of those anxious feelings. So God, I pray that you'll enable us to be grateful, to go through our days thinking about what we can do in considerate ways for other people, to pray, to just constantly be in a dialogue with you, to think about things that are good and excellent and noble, to change how we think. And then finally, God, I asked you that you'd help us as we just act, we just start doing the things and getting out there and moving ahead in life. Pray, God, for everybody that might be struggling, that you'd be, through your Spirit, that you'd be empowering them and equipping them to do this today. Thank you for the day ahead of us, God. I pray that in all that we do, all that we say, we would in every way becoming more like Christ. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Alrighty, thank you all, everybody. I love you guys all, and hope you have a good day, and see you probably Sunday if I don't get to see you before. Have a great day. Love you. Goodbye.